And before I start, let me welcome you to Agapogeh. I saw on the paper, you recognize this Agapogeh. Agapogeh is the traditional ancestral homelands of Tesuque Pueblo, of my people from Tesuque. And I'd be remiss if I don't recognize my sister, Margaret. Vicky is the other one. Oren was asking me about Vicky, that's why his name. Margaret.
I'm his favorite sister.
And I'm Clayton, where is Clayton right there? And Clayton, my brother-in-law, who's from the area that Oren comes from also. And this morning we had a run here in town. The Wings organization, organization put on the run this morning, and I was asked to do opening prayer before the run also. I didn't know this event was going on, but Oren said, Gil, you need to be there. So our elders asked us to be present where we respect that. And so I'm here, and Oren and my mom and dad go back a long way. They knew each other quite a long time, so that's how we know Oren, and he's a great friend of ours. And so when he said he was going to be part of the tree planting ceremony, I'm more than happy to do a prayer. So with that, I'll go ahead and render a prayer and also pray to the tree. I was wondering, when they said they're going to plant the tree, I was wondering what kind of tree it was going to be. I was thinking maybe it's going to be another Chinese elm or Russian olive. And that's another story. They're my enemies right now. Russian olives and Chinese elm, because the way they were brought to this country. So with that, I'll do my prayer in my language. Hera kanto na mo ina ta na ta ta na du kanto na mo to sa ta mo pendi wo mo po ba sa ta to no o gi wo mo po kanto na mo no o gapu ki ka mo kanto. We're in a very sad state of being today, with all the pollution, with all the bad things that we're doing to Mother Earth. And she is telling us all the things you're doing to us. If you do not change your ways, we're going to find find ourselves in a place that maybe we would not want to be at. And so the offering of the tree, planting of the tree, is a symbolism to work to that peace, because it's going to take all of us to come together, to work together, to put the word out, and to do our part in celebrating Mother Earth. And for us Pueblo people, like I said, this is Agapogeh, White Shell Water Place, and our ancestral homeland was this whole area of Santa Fe, all the way from El Dorado, now what is El Dorado, Pecos, all the way into the Galisteo Basin, La Ciénaga, Agua Fria. All those were our sister pueblos that lived in the day. And today I'm wearing our t-shirt that we commemorated. August 10th was 1680 Pueblo Revolt. 339 years ago, our Pueblo people revolted because of the oppression, the atrocity, what was brought upon us by another country, by a foreign nation. And on 1680, we revolted against this foreign nation for independence, so that we could live our lives that we are living today, having our language, our culture, our songs, our dances. And so if you are familiar with New Mexico, we have celebrations going on in each of the pueblos on a monthly basis. But those are the things that were protected by our people in 1680 when they revolted. The first revolution on this continent for independence, long before the colonists revolted against England for their independence. But we did that long before they did that, and for the same reason, for independence. And we are not a warlike people, but because our way of life was threatened, we took arms. And had we not taken arms, we would have probably not be here today like we are. And so if you ever get a chance to, if you go downtown Santa Fe, the new convention center, how many of you are familiar with the convention center downtown? Mm-hmm. If you go downtown, there's a courtyard. It's called Gatu and Amtua Courtyard. And the two runners, those two names are the two runners that were first gave up their life for our independence. They were two runners that would go out each day taking a yucca strap with knots tied on it. And each day they would travel to the different pueblos that existed during that time around here. And each day they would untie a knot, signifying how many days was left. On August 9th, when they were out there, there was 3 knots left on the rope, or the yucca tie. But the governor, there was a village up there by El Dorado called San Cristobal. That Pueblo governor sold us out. When the runners got to that Pueblo, the people of that Pueblo told them that their governor from their Pueblo was on his way to come into Santa Fe to let the governor, Spanish governor Otamin, know that there was going to be a revolt. So the 2 runners came back to Tesuque. And so not to lose the element of surprise, they ran out on August 10th and the revolt started. So we tell that story. We commemorate this was our 22nd year. One year when I was governor of Tesuque, I was telling this story. The mayor, I think was Delgado, was there at the time. And I was telling the story, and behind here in Santa Fe, and I'm sure you're familiar, behind, there's a big white cross on top of the hill. Well, that cross is to honor the priests that were killed in 1680. And it's called the Cross of the Martyrs. That's what it's called. So I was telling Mayor, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could put a monument right next to up there, alongside of that, with honoring the 2 runners, Gatu and Umptua.
Yeah.
Mayor Delgado said, Governor, why don't we dedicate this plaza at the convention center as Gatu and Umptua Plaza? So we said, wonderful. The following year, the city of Santa Fe passed a proclamation naming the courtyard Gatu and Umptua Plaza. The following year, there's a plaque that they presented us, a bronze plaque that's placed in the corner. So if you ever get a chance to go down, you'll see that story that I'm telling. So it's Gatu and Umptua Plaza. We also have former Governor Rivera from Pewaukee creating 2 sculptures, bronze sculptures of runners that we're going to put them in that place. So when that happens, we're going to have a bigger celebration and celebrate the 2 runners. But that's how important Agapogeh is to us, to the people of Tesuque. So these are our homelands, and not just the Santa Fe itself, but the surrounding, this whole area.
Yeah.
So with that, I just wanted to give that story and for the significance of the reason we're here. And also thank John for his idea to have this ceremony to plant the tree of peace. And Oren will describe that more about what the tree is about. And one more thing. We have another tree that I just found out that's older than the redwoods in California, are aspen trees.
Really?
Our aspen trees are even older than the big oak trees, red oaks in California.
Wow.
So trees are important to us, especially like these trees.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, wow.
So I just wanted to say thank you to Uncle Governor here for his words. And just to tell you a little bit about this place, I think listening to Mr. Governor, I could maybe speak a little bit quieter and still reach everybody. So this place, Agapogeh White Shell Water Place, we're living here on this land. Right now it has this name that it's been called Arco-Iris Institute after the rainbow. And you see these names have changed over time on land, Agapogeh to Santa Fe, and I think it's a good thing today that we're doing this and remembering the original names of this land. And so we're here working on this land, wanting to recognize that and work towards regenerating our relationship with Mother Nature and with all of our relatives of all colors and all people on this planet. And this is our intention with this space. So we're feeling very grateful to plant this tree of peace. And this place right here used to be concrete one day ago. And so now you can see it's coming back to nature. And so this, is the work that we're up to. And I'd like to just pass it off to Uncle Will Channing here to introduce John and Oren.
Well, thank you, Ibrahim. I mean, this is really special. As I look around, there's so many family members here, and I'm talking about the sense of friends who have all become family members, who all have had this great commitment in their lives to stay focused on including Mother Earth in our prayers and in our work. And I was fortunate to meet Oren some 45 years ago, and we've continued on to work side by side in different ventures, and we try and support Oren and some of the things that he's doing, of which there are many, many things in different parts of the country, and he's worked diligently on behalf of all of us. And it was, believe it or not, back in the early 80s at the Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, New York, where a lot of us came together, where Marcus and Priscilla, the governor's parents, met Oren, and John Stokes met Oren, and we all were working together. People like Winona LeDuc and Janet McLeod and Audrey Shenandoah. I mean, a lot of Jake Swamp, a lot of great people who meant a lot to all of us and have continued to work so hard. And in that breath, Jake Swamp was the one who really encouraged us to get together to plant the trees of peace. It was Jake who was, a Mohawk activist and speaker and professor who was a very distinguished historian of Iroquois. He was like the one who knew everything about the history and culture. And so it's him that brought us together. I'm so impressed and so thankful to Ibrahim, because Ibrahim has been carrying on the fire, and that's so important to all of us, standing here, that we see the energy continued. And thank you very much for bringing us all together. I know that you've been right beside Uncle John here, and have learned a huge amount as John has traveled himself around the country, and he just made it here today, coming in from Hawaii to be with us all. But I think we have to remember the youth and our kids, and I say this in honor of your kids too, Louisa, and everything you brought to the table and to this land with us. And so it's a great honor to be here, and thank you all very much for being part of this family.
Shall we sit? Would you like to begin?
Okay. Please sit down.
Oren, do you need a glass of water nearby?
Huh?
Do you want a glass of water?
I got one there. There's an old saying from the military: "Get the troops out of the sun." And you know what I mean here today. So I'll try to be brief and also take care of the process here. The Tree of Peace, the Great Tree of Peace, first planted in our country, which is North America, in Turtle Island, up near where the Great Lakes are. They call them the Great Lakes now. And at that time, there was a great deal of warfare, terrible fighting going on. Something very similar that's going on in Kosovo and in the Far East, the same kind of battles that were atrocious and terrible to everybody. And at that time came a very spiritual, forceful figure called the Great Peacemaker. We do not use his name because at some time he said, "When you call me, I'll hear you. I don't want people using my name everywhere because then I don't know who's calling." So we do not use his name. We call him the Great Peacemaker. And at some point, I'm sure we're going to have to call him. Now, at the time, he began his process of bringing peace, and his life story is very long. So it's an epic all by itself before he meets with the Mohawks. And when he did come in his canoe that he had carved from white stone and came across that lake you call Ontario now today, he landed early on the northeast side of what is called Ontario, Lake Ontario today, and that was Mohawk territory. And two Mohawk men were watching this white canoe come in and this imposing figure. And when he landed, they knocked their bows with arrows, figuring, well, maybe we'll just dispatch him, but he looks formidable. So they asked him what was his mission. Why was he there? And he said, peace. Peace. They said to one another, not much of that around here these days. It's just the way there's not much of that around here today. And so they were trying to decide whether to dispatch him right there or hear his mission. He said, take me to your leader. I want to talk to him. They said, about what? He said, peace. Peace. So, convinced them. They said, go over to that lodge yonder, spend the night there. There's a woman called Skaęhetsiʻkona from the Erie Nation. She takes care of men who are on the warpath back and forth. She has a rule, leave all your weapons outside. And sometimes enemies spent the night together in her lodge. She fed them, she gave them water, sent them on her way. So that was his first encounter with the Skaęhetsiʻkona, and she asked what is his mission, and he said, peace. She said, I want to help you with that. It's terrible what's going on. I'm tired. And so that's how it started. And I don't want to get into the whole story because it'll be days to tell you the story. But that's the beginning. So the issue has always been peace, and eventually after he gathered the 5 nations together, finally, and nobody's really sure how many years that took, but he did get them together, and each one of those nations has its own story of what he came and what he said, and we have that word for word today. We have that story, word for word. And we've kept that. I'm sure you've heard versions and so forth, but there's only one, and that's the one that we carry. And so, finally he gathered them all together on the shores of a lake they call Onondaga Lake today. It's a small lake. It's only maybe a couple miles long and maybe a mile wide. But there at that lake, he planted the first tree of peace. And he said, this tree will reach to the sky and all will see it. And all are welcome to come here. And they will have 4 white roots of peace and truth that reach in the 4 directions of the earth. And those can follow that root back to its source and come under the protection of the great law of peace. And that's how it all began. And at that time he set up the structure of the leadership, set up the clans, set up the rules, explained everything in full. It was given to our people in total, complete. And he said, this is yours. This is yours to keep and promote. And so he commanded all of the men to bring their weapons of war. And as he uprooted that tree, he said, throw your weapons in here. And they threw it in, and the moving waters underneath this earth carried them in the 4 directions. So he buried the weapons, and then he left us with the Hayenhwátha, the sacred tobacco. He said, this is your strength. And after all of that, and laying down and the laws and the ceremonies, and everything was given to us completely, a woman said, now that you have planted this tree, how long will it last? And he said, that's up to you. And that's where it sits right now. That's up to you. This tree was not just planted for the Haudenosaunee, the Onondagas. It was planted for all life, the whole world. And so in this time, in my lifetime, now to explain, I'm a runner for the Onondaga Council of Chiefs. I sit on the council. I'm a wolf, it's my clan. My son, Rex, is somewhere around. I don't know whether he's here or not. His clan is Eel. And we're a matrilineal system, and that's what the Peacemaker said. He said the earth is female, and therefore women are in charge of the earth. And that's the way it is. And so it is the woman who determines who we are in our country. All nations have their own way of saying who they are and their identity. And so it's important to keep that identity, whoever it is. Identity, knowing who you are, is fundamental to survival. So one of our Mohawk chiefs by the name of Jake Swamp used to plant many, many trees. I have no idea how many trees he planted, but we put one together, I know in Geneva at the United Nations. There's a tree that we planted there many years ago now. So it must have some strength and distance to it by this time. But Jake has gone around, that was his mission. He made that his mission, to bring this message of peace to everyone, because it belongs to everyone. And it's important for us to understand that we are a species. We are, you know, I just see our friend here, Jiha, he came walking by here. He's a species. He comes in all colors, as you can see. He comes in all shapes and all sizes, but he's still a dog. We're the same. We come in all colors and all sizes. We're still family. We're related. You can change blood. How close can you be? How close can you be if you can change blood with one another? So that's what's been lost in this turmoil that we're existing in today. And I appreciate the fact that we're planting this tree of peace, a symbol, great symbol, to encourage our people to keep that mission in mind and to understand that peace is dynamic. Peace requires work, peace requires you move, and if you don't, then the dark force is going to roll on you. If you don't defend yourself, they're going to roll on you. You have to move. And today, that's where we're at. So in the planting of that tree, he instructed us, he said to take care of coming generations. He said, think not of yourself, think not of your family, or even your generation. He said, make your decision on behalf of generations coming, that they will have what you have today. 7 generations. He's talking the full length of a human life. Tendency of our brother who came across the water here is to shortcut things. His idea of a generation is 20 years. For us, that's just when the person becomes a semi-adult. Never mind running the world. And so I appreciate the fact that John has worked his way here and brought this about, and that so fortunate to have the speaker here to say what it was. And what he was saying was peace, number 1. 2, equity for the people, for life, equity for the trees and for the grass and for the animals and for those mice who are sitting there listening to us right now. Equity for them. Responsibility for them. This is generation here. Next one. There's 6 more. 6 more. If we do what's right. That's in our hands now. So, my general advice to people of Santa Fe is put down your toys, act like an adult, take the responsibility of being an adult person to raise children and family and nations. Put down your toys. Or you won't survive. That's the question now, anyway. So I'm just simply a runner for the nation. That's all I've ever been. And I'm walking now because age is catching up to me. But the mission remains the same. I'm speaking on behalf of our leaders back home, of those clan mothers and faith keepers, chiefs, leaders. Toyane, noñh, noñh, say, I'm a peacekeeper. Oyane means peace. Those who keep the peace. That's our mission. That's the mission of the leadership of the Haudenosaunee. And that's what I'm here. I'm simply carrying that information and that voice. I'm no more or no less than important than any one of you sitting here. We're all the same. We're all the same. We're just simply people. So let's do better. Let's do better. And like I say, sure would be fun watching the people of Santa Fe put their toys down. That'd be fun. On the other hand, you know, you've gathered here to honor this event and take care of this tree, take care of it, and water it and be careful. It's a symbol. It's a symbol of peace for the future of our humanity in this world. There's nothing that says we have to be here. There's no rule, no law. And we're bound by the same laws as our four-legged friends out there. Those that fly, swim, crawl, creep, we're all the same. The only thing that we have is the intellect. That's different. And with that intellect comes responsibility and good or bad choices. Every day you get up, you have the option to be good or bad today. Every one of us. So, as they say back home, we put our minds together as one for these issues of peace, of equity, and union, to be united, one mind, one heart, one spirit, one body, for peace. That's my mission. That's that mission. I'll remind you, when you get weak, come here. Come here. It's going to go there for you. Donate, so thank you, I'm done. Pretty hot out there for you guys. Just put some more cornmeal down in a hole before they put that in there. Yeah. Give it a good base.
I really want to acknowledge Ibrahim, who came to a training with me in June and was inspired by the teachings that I shared about my time with Jake Swamp. And he is the one who put this all together. And I'm so fortunate and so honored to be with Oren. The last time we worked together was in Saltaluokta, over the Arctic Circle with some Sami people, herders. That was the last time I saw Oren. And thank you, Gil, and thank you, Clayton and Margaret, Will, all of you. I just thought I would speak for a few minutes about Jake and how I came to the Iroquois. There's some interesting information for you. I was 7 years in Australia working with the Aboriginal Australians. It was before the stolen generation. It was before the time when they learned that they had all been taken from their families. And I was part of the uncovering of that information. And I was given a tape recorder and a list of names, and I went around and I recorded people, and I learned many things. And I learned that they knew how to track. Everybody could track, and I couldn't track. I could track and survive, and I didn't know how. And I came to see that it was a very human skill and a very deep skill. Some might say the art of tracking, the origin of science. Science is observation, tracking is observation. And I studied and I learned from an elder named Jimmy James, a Pijanjara tracker, very famous. And I left Australia in 1984, not quite knowing what I had. And I met some Mohawk artists and editors from the Akwesasne Notes, which was a beacon of consciousness. The Aborigines were so impressed with the way the Iroquois could conscientize what they were feeling but didn't know how to say. And the Iroquois had a tremendous respect for the Aborigines and the Aborigines for the Iroquois. So I became a runner when I could still run. I kind of slow run, semi-walk now. And so I began traveling back and forth. They would say, bring us a map. We don't know where those guys live. Bring us a map. And so I would do that. And one day they walked me out into the woods and they asked me, show us how those guys see. And I said what I saw. And they said, would you show our kids that? And I began some camps with Ray Fadden. And he was a man who took the Confederacy through the 1930s in a very dark time, when the Indian people were not allowed to speak their language, when they were not allowed to marry each other in New York State, in this country. And it was a hard time, and Ray Fadden was instrumental in running camps for the youth. So he came to me and he asked me, what are you going to do in these camps? And I said, I'm going to teach them fire making, shelter building, tracking, and just plug them in so they're self-reliant in nature. And he said, you don't have to say any more. I did what you're doing in the 1930s. And you see all those chiefs and clan mothers? Those were my campers. He said, you be the boss. I said, nuh-uh, you the boss. He said, we'll both be bosses. So we began to do a series of camps. And one day, Jake Swamp came to watch what we were doing. And he said to me, what I think you're doing with this tracking is you're tracking the truth. I wish that everybody could look at American history with the eye of a tracker. Then they would see what really happened. And that was fascinating. And he said, let's put our nonprofits together, the Tree of Peace Society and the Tracking Project. He said, you're good at coming up with names. So I came up with the name, Tracking the Roots of Peace. And we would do a tracking course for the kids, and then one day would be a Tree of Peace planting. Because he had taken that act of the Peacemaker, the symbolism of planting the Tree of Peace to remind everybody of what they had done, and he turned it into a ceremony, which we could do, and which we did all over the world. So I've just come back from Maui, and we planted an ulu tree, a breadfruit tree, because the elder of the Ahupua'a, where we planted it, the land division, has a leader who is called the Konohiki, and his name is Sam Ka'ai. He chose an ulu tree to feed the people, breadfruit, and it's big, it's growing fast. So we've got these peace trees all over the world. When we plant the tree today, which we won't wait too long to do, and we'll have some other festivities after we get it in the ground so you can all be part of that, each and every one of you. When we plant the tree, we plant it in a ceremony. And 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 we plant it in a cer That tree is here for us all to care for. We have to make sure it's cared for, and every time you want to come see the tree, you can stand under that tree and remember the words we spoke today. And the tree symbolizes the Peacemaker chose an evergreen tree because peace is forever. It doesn't lose its needles. And Ibrahim worked really hard to pick a tree that kept the symbolism of the 5 nations, because there were 5 needles on the white pine tree that the Peacemaker planted more than 1,000 years ago, and there's 5 needles on this tree to remember that symbolism. And what he did was he took an arrow and he asked a warrior if he could break it, and the man snapped it. And he said, that's how you'll be if you try to stand alone. And then he wrapped the 5 arrows into a bundle, and he said, break this. And no man could. And he said, that's how strong you'll be if you stand together. And let no one pull their arrow from the bundle, because you will weaken us all. The white roots Oren described, the greenness of the tree, the 5 needles in the bundle, and then he put an eagle in the top of the tree. And the eagle was to symbolize what Oren has asked us all to do, to wake up, put down the toys, and be vigilant, because the price of peace is vigilance. That we all keep our eyes to the distance. If we see anything coming that might disturb the peace, we are to call out like an eagle and alert everyone so that we can maintain the peace. So there's a tremendous symbolism to the tree, the way that we're going to put it in the ground. And we're going to do it like Jake used to do it. What he liked to do is put it in the ground, water it in, have everybody come, and every one of you and all the little fellas, and take some dirt and place it on the tree so you know that you were one. And then we'll water it in, and then I think Ibrahim had somebody in the audience who was going to sing us a song. And yes, because Jake always liked someone to sing a peace song for the tree. Jake gave me a lot of duties before he left. He asked me to put out a version of the Thanksgiving address, Onondaga Lake, the words that come before we do anything important. And I nodded and said I would. And then he added, and translated it into all the languages of the world. And I half-heartedly nodded. He said, so that one day in the future, when all the young people get together and they ask someone to do an opening, one of them will stand up and do the Thanksgiving, and all the young people will say, that's the same prayer I was going to do. And they will find themselves united. So we've done 11 languages of the Thanksgiving. And I think it's been useful, Oren told me, to be able to put that book in the hands of a foreign leader and say, this is what I'm talking about. Yeah. So the joke was that every time people asked us how we were going, Jake and I would smile and say, ever since we met, he's stoked and I'm swamped. I remain swamped. So with that, and with a great admiration for Oren, with a great admiration for the Loyani, who have maintained this system, which exists to this day after 1,000 years. And I'm going to add one more piece. Jake said to me, the first 250 years were really hard. And then it got worse. And then they came and they burnt our villages, and we escaped to the hills with nothing but the clothes on our back and our language. And one of the things we lost was the training of the young people. And that's something you can help us with. So you hear about my work and the tracking project. It was inspired by Jake, by the Iroquois. to help with that piece that I could help with. And now I'm 40 years on the trail, and still going. Yeah. So with that, Ibrahim, why don't we move to the tree and bring the water close at hand? And if you all would like to
Should put that
come out
in there
where
before
you
they-
can see or be part of, if you comfortable, stay. And why don't we get a few tree planters?
Where's
Yeah.
Chris Wells?
Okay.
Do you have anybody see if it's not straight from your angle? A little bit this way.
Good.
Would you like to put a handful?
No, we put this.
Hearing from other women a little bit this way, is that all right? Yeah? Thank you.
So now if you would, each and every one of you, yeah, if you'd like to, please come forward and just take a handful and place it in the bowl. Make your blessing. And then we'll make a nice big circle around the tree, and then we'll do our song. And that'll complete that portion of it.
No, we're okay now. I just sit down.
It's warm. It's warm out there.
I know it.
Vicky's babysitting.
I was wondering where she was.
Vicky's being a grandma.
Tree becomes our
The
piece
market
of-
selling food.
and whenever we want to in the future,
She was doing that last year too.
Yeah, she did it with the kids.
come sit under the tree. We don't need a building anymore. We have our Peace Institute. In Hawaii, when they do ho'oponopono, when they do their peacemaking, they take the people involved and they sit under a tree of peace. So
So I just wanted to let all of you know that tonight we have a very special event that Oren is going to be the host speaker of. It's a panel discussion, part of the Great Turtle Talks. And it's happening at 5 o'clock tonight at Hotel Santa Fe. And the speakers are Oren Lyons, Roxanne Swenzel, Joy Harjo, and Dustin Martin. And it's a panel discussion on value change for survival. You're all welcome to come. I would ask that you make a donation what you can afford when you come, but it's at 5 o'clock at Hotel Santa Fe, and it's an important event this evening, the Great Total Sword. If you have any other questions, you can ask myself or Dustin Martin and Andrew Hickson, who's here somewhere. Right
Hey,
here.
young friend, go put this over on the table. Anyway, yeah.
Where?
Yeah, over there.
What's Angela up to? I haven't heard from her. Angela Ferguson, what's she doing?
Remember me?
I don't know. I haven't heard either.
She's still out there?
I'm not sure because it's been quiet, you know.
Oh,
I
jeez.
haven't heard that from her.
How about Roger? But in Central America,
So much in the way.
I was going to invite them, but I haven't heard nothing from them.
Of course you will.
If they're out here,
This young man.
Some had good luck and some didn't have good luck this year. It's too wet.
everybody's behind.
Well, couldn't get in there because it's wet. It's just going to get worse there. Be more and more. Be more and more water coming. The ice goes down a lot.
Yeah.
It's from Six Nations, he said.
Yeah. I met him some years back.
Yeah.
He's been out here for a while, not as long as I have.
Yeah. You done good out here, though. But, oh, feast day?
No, huh? Just check
Is it-
out our seed.
Just
Yeah.
business. Well, you see, you know, go out in the morning. I'll talk to Will.
Yeah. We can give this guy a free meal.
Can't beat it.
I'm cooking. My grandson is asking how come I don't know how to cook.
Oh boy.
As my grandpa